Hi everybody, this week we're going to be exploring the American literature period of Romanticism. That began in the early 1800s and went to about the Civil War. We know that all of these periods are not neat and tidy and they have some overlap and some things that fit and don't fit. So that's my disclaimer for today. If you look at this picture and study it for a little while, that is sort of how people felt about America back in the day, and how some people still view America as this vast wilderness where people could explore nature and they were free to do so, and it was just really, really idealized. We all know that behind this picture, this pictorial view of America as this idealized democracy, there were some real problems. But this is what writers were focusing on at the time. In this module, Module 14, the tasks that you're going to be asked to do in Canvas, first of all, there's a discussion question, and it's the nature of nature. Just follow the discussion guidelines and respond to the discussion prompt and reply to a post from peers. Remember, you have to do all of that to get all of your points. In addition, don't forget, you need to be writing in a formal sense of the word. I need to have a lot of very 5 to 8 sentences for your posts. I would like to see them grammatically correct. I'd like to see a variety of different types of sentences and lengths of sentences. I would like you to try to push yourself on vocabulary and structure of your sentences in your writing. Think about all those rhetorical devices that we talked about in the last module. You will complete a content reading activity about Romanticism and the fireside poets. You'll just do the reading in the module. There is also a slideshow within the module to look at and some knowledge check questions. The main assignment for this module will be a reading assignment. It will be of the fireside poets, and you will be doing a TP cast analysis. You'll read the selected text from the fireside poets and complete and submit the assignment. Feel free, you only have to read 3. Feel free to read more than 3 and also explore some of the other wonderful pieces of literature that are from this amazing period in American literature. There is no submission requirement for the 4th bullet point, the common reading assignment about transcendentalism, although it is one of the basic tenets of American literature. So I would encourage you to be very cognizant of that period, of those pieces and authors, and try to answer those questions even though they are not required. Okay, our learning objectives, and you can read through those. I'll highlight some things. You're going to be identifying some major themes in American literature, like our relationship with nature, and of course, continuing on with the American dream. You're going to describe and contrast literary movements and represent texts associated with each literary movement. Romanticism and transcendentalism will be the ones we focus on primarily. Also look at some of the motifs, the themes, the universal characters and genres that are reflected in American literature. And finally, explain how the sound of a poem, rhyme, rhythm, onomatopoeia, etc. support the subject, mood, and the theme. And that will culminate with your analysis of the fireside poets. Okay, here are just some terms that you will need to know if you come through all of your assignments and you feel like you don't have a good command of these particular terms. Go on back and maybe research them with Encyclopedia Britannica on your Rapid Identity page. It's linked in there. You can find it and explore them a little bit more because they are very good to know and they will help you to appreciate American literature all the more. This is just a chart for you to look at. If you look at the things on here, and I'll get rid of that, we have the the periods that we've kind of looked at so far. And like I said before, they do overlap with each other, and each is influenced by the last. And they are all influenced by other things going on in the world, right? So if you look over this chart, you'll see some things from the Native American period that we studied. That have to do with the earth on the turtle's back. Remember, it was the oral tradition. They handed things down orally from person to person. If you look at the whole of the colonial period, you'll notice the huge influence of religion on that period of time, and the Puritans and all of those things. The Age of Reason, which we just studied, logic and science were prevalent, and most of the works were nonfiction works that were designed to inspire revolutions, and there were revolutions around the world as well as in America, and that leads us to where we are now with Romanticism, and emotion was appreciated over reason, senses over intellect, calm, beauty, genius, idealized, everything idealized. There was an elegant formality to the literature of the time, the poetry and the prose, both. There was idealism, freedom, democracy, and equality. We know that everything that is idealistic is not realistic, right? There was a trend towards nationalism, and then the movement of transcendentalism that you will study, and you will hopefully read some of the works like Henry David Thoreau's Walden. It's just fantastic. There was the poetry of the time, Emily Dickinson, the quintessential American poet, and the beauty of nature, and finally some folklore. Look at the list here of some of the people who were talents of the time. Edgar Allan Poe, although he doesn't fit into these movements, he fits more into the Gothic movement. One of my favorite authors of all time. He is connected to the Richmond area, and he was part of this huge wealth of American talent that we had. James Fenimore Cooper, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Walt Whitman, huge, vast repository of talent. What was Romanticism? Nope, not all of this lovey-dovey stuff. It wasn't like that, although things were romanticized like nature and those American ideals, but it wasn't exactly all of those Cupid hearts and lovey kissy stuff. It wasn't that at all. It was an attitude or an intellectual orientation that characterized many works of literature, painting, music, architecture, criticism, and it took over Western civilization from the late 18th century to the mid 19th century, or about the Civil War time, and that's courtesy of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Here are some characteristics that we have already kind of gone through. Emotions took precedence over reason and rational thought. There's the idealism theme. The characters in these pieces of art were in touch with their emotions, and the poetry of the day displayed emotions, not always love, but emotions. The rugged American landscape was highlighted, and think about the rugged American that came out of that. Writers were really into the natural world. Nationalism was born, that American brand of literature. We were inspired by those British romantics, but you must know that the beauty and the identity of the works were uniquely American. Exploration and adventure, still a theme of American literature today. It was the mood of America as we all moved west. Some of us stayed east, but many people moved west. That love of nature is prevalent in some of the huge titles of the day. Moby Dick, The Last of the Mohicans, and Walden. I hope you all have a chance to read those works because they're phenomenal. In our module, you will read some of the Fireside Poets' poems, and the TP-CAST is an acronym. It's used to analyze poetry. And the T is for title, the P is for paraphrase, C is for connotation, A is for attitude, S is for shift, and T is for title. I forgot the other T down here. There should be another T, and that is for theme, because that's why we look at all this other stuff to see what themes are in the literature. This photograph, or actually painting over here, is of a maybe not period salon, but a salon was where all of the intellects would go of the day and appreciate literature and appreciate music and appreciate intellectual conversation. And it was a kind of elitist activity, but it was going on over America as we experienced a renaissance in culture. Okay, when we analyze and we do our, you'll see this in the module, in the introduction and directions. And I wanted to make sure you were aware that this is it's just an acronym, and I will go through the model of what it is.